Hey guys, this is Jeff from Evans Tuning. In today's Daily Tune episode, we have a 240SX, and it has an LS1 swap, a rear-mounted turbo setup, 60-pound injectors. We're going to be tuning it using HP tuners. This car has been tuned prior. It seems to me, looking over what's done, it's been done mass airflow based. So we're going to fit a new map sensor, a 2-bar map sensor from a Cobalt, which is plug and play, and convert it to speed density and tune it that way. So we'll get it started and see how everything goes. It's probably going to rock off on the dyno with vibration. Maybe we should put it just somewhere else we can kind of fit it, maybe. Well, for right now, does it seem like it'll hold there?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just change the map sensor first. Okay, let me get this guy. Get a screwdriver for this guy.
It's definitely, it feels a little rich, I would say, as of now. We had an O2 sensor air where we were thinking it was really lean.
Okay.
So we got on, added a bunch of fuel.
Yeah.
Found out the sensor was bad.
Okay, like the primary sensor, you're saying?
Yes,
Gotcha.
yeah. So it's definitely running a little rich right now.
Okay. Yeah, that'll all get fixed. Converting it over here. Sounds like the idle's a little goofy too. Is the idle kind of weird?
Yeah, it's like you gotta
keep a foot on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I should be able to get rid of all that stuff. Do you know if it's like a GTO ECU?
It came with the GTO setup. It is a GTO pullout.
Okay, so the ECU and harness are all GTO.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, from what I understand, when we got it, it was all a GTO motor, GTO trans, GTO ECU, and harness.
Okay.
But I know it pops up with like a 4.3 liter.
Yeah, it says a truck.
Yeah, so you know.
That's fine.
That's how it's been since day one.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
when you log into it, it says like 5.7 liter motor.
Yeah.
On their engine side.
Yeah. I'm just double checking because it looks like the file that they put in there, like they either applied a patch to it already, or that file wasn't.
That was me. I applied for the 1-bar map sensor.
Okay.
When we were trying to get it to start and run.
Okay.
I thought they were originally. That's what they told us originally that it was supposed to be map based, but when I pulled up the program, there wasn't anything checked for map.
Did you save the original file?
Yeah, on my computer. I didn't bring that.
Okay. I'm gonna have to do a relicense and insert a GTO because I can't. Basically, I can't. I read the ROM, which has already had the patch applied to it. Okay. I can't undo that patch. If I had the original file, then I could, apply a new patch to that original file. So I'm gonna reinsert an 04 GTO file in, and then I can apply the patch to that. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I mean that box is strictly for this car, and
okay.
It has extra.
It does. I wanted to do it before I asked.
Yeah,
okay.
Whatever you gotta do.
Okay. All right. Then we're good. So I hooked into the PCM and I downloaded the file out. It's been tuned with HP tuners before. It looks like the owner applied the 1-bar patch to the ROM that was in the ECU, and I just installed a 2-bar sensor. So what that means with HP tuners is that I'd have to convert it to a 2-bar operating system. And unfortunately, because I don't have the original file out of the car, I'm not able to switch the operating system. The way that HP makes you do it. So I'm reinserting a 2004 GTO calibration file into the computer right now, and then I'm going to be able to apply the 2-bar patch to that and then set it up for a 2-bar map sensor so it can reference boost. This car was tuned just on the mass airflow sensor and not on the map sensor previously. So I'm doing that right now, and then hopefully get to fire this thing up and start going here. But there's always a little bit of a unknown when cars come in. You never know exactly what someone else did or how the file's set up. So it's all kind of part of the tuning process. So doing the flash right now, and hopefully in a few minutes we'll have it running. So I got the new file in the ECU. I started with a 2004 GTO file because that's what the ECU actually was out of, the whole engine swap. So the engine trans, engine harness, ECU was from a 04 GTO. I inserted a new GTO file in there. I converted it to a two-bar map sensor operating system with HP tuners. I put in my injector data. These are 60-pound injectors. I converted it from the mass airflow to speed density, so it's running full map sensor all the time. Fired it up, and I am just right now kind of tweaking my base idle airflow tables. When you log with HP tuners, you can actually see your how much pound per minute the idle airflow request is off, which translates to, on this is a cable throttle body on a Gen 3, which translates to the idle control motor itself. So what I'm doing is I'm manipulating the idle airflow tables so that I can get my short-term feedback as close to zero as possible, so that the system knows how much airflow it needs with the upgraded cam in there. I'm pretty close right now. The car's, it fires up real nice. You don't have to give it gas like you did before. And the fuel trims are, I'm tweaking the VE table as I'm going. The fuel trims are pretty close right now. I'm about plus or minus 5% at idle. Yeah, we're gonna get this on the dyno and actually start calibrating the VE curve. But for right now, everything looks good. The car's responding and acting the way it should. So I'm gonna keep dialing on the idle tables, and I'm gonna get some of the dyno, and then actually start doing some part throttle calibration, and then full throttle. Yeah, look at the turbo back there, huh? Hiding out behind the bumper. I think we are good. All right. Okay. Let's see what we have here. So I'm ready to begin. I got the car on the dyno, ready to start doing the fuel mapping right now. I've set up a custom graph here that's going to display my short-term and long-term fuel trims from the primary O2 sensors. You can see the cumulative trims right now on both banks are trimming here. This is adding and averaging the long and short term together to give me my overall correction that's going on right now. And this is to reach the stoichiometric 14.7, which are going to be operating the car in closed loop out of boost. So by creating this custom graph, which matches my volumetric efficiency table in the HP tuner, I'm able to quickly see the difference of my fuel, scale my fuel from that, and then I can watch the wideband and just confirm everything is matching what my O2 sensors are trimming and showing me in response to the actual fueling. Another thing that I kind of want to point out here is there's a short and long-term trim or learn trim with the idle parameters. Right here I have all of my idle parameter airflow displayed in pound per minute, and this is showing me how much the ECU is adding or taking away from my base airflow table, and this is actually my desired airflow that the ECU is calculating to run the idle control motor on this car on a Gen 4 GM. They're drive-by-wire, so that allows them to control the actual throttle angle because it's all electronically driven, where these are basically a bleeder valve that's controlling the idle airflow. So right now my short-term adaptive trim is essentially at zero, which is what you want, as close to zero as possible. My long-term trim is pulling out negative 0.13 pound per minute. So that could be tweaked a little bit. And right now the fan's kicked on, so it actually added 0.1 pound per minute to compensate for the voltage load for the fan kicking on. So you can see this in real time, and it's really important if you're trying to set up your idle to watch what you're doing, as well as your ignition advance. You have your spark timing, and you can actually pull up your idle ignition advance, which is how much the ECU is adaptively learning, trying to reach your target at 700. Right now we're plus or minus 25 RPM, I'd say, from the 700 target. So everything looks good right now. I'm going to start doing some of the volumetric efficiency calculations here. plotting my short and long-term field trims, then flashing and keeping that process going until I get my field trims balanced in my volumetric efficiency map. Then I'm going to move over to boost and then do some full throttle pulls. Dipstick popped. That's not good. That sucks real bad. Yeah. God, it's on my laptop. Fuck. Shit. Damn it. Like a crankcase pressure problem because it yeah, it popped the dipstick. I'm just gonna zip tie it, keep it down for the dyno pulls. Something's up with this thing. So I made a few pulls. I noticed the first pull, the dipstick actually popped out of the engine, which typically means you know, there's an issue with crankcase pressure. I didn't know for sure if the dipstick was 100% in, so I popped it in, I zip tied it, just so it wouldn't pop out again. I made another pull, and I noticed some smoke. I made another pull, you know, about 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, and I noticed still the same amount of smoke. I jumped out, I checked under the car, and there's, you know, big puddle of oil. It looks like the oil could be pushing from the rear main seal in the engine, which would indicate that there is a massive crankcase problem. The crankcase is pressurizing when it gets into boost. So I kind of looked in the engine bay here and trying to figure out what was going on. I saw off the valve covers, there's dash 10 lines from both banks of the valve covers going into this catch can. When I inspected the catch can closer, there's actually no breather on the catch can. So both lines were going in here, but they were pressurizing the can, but there's nothing to escape. There's actually nothing to let the pressure out. So it's essentially the engine was fully closed off, like it's capsulated, and when it was getting into boost, it was pressurizing the crankcase. So I'm gonna try to take these lines and just put them temporarily for a pull. I'm gonna shove them in just like a plastic can here and see if that will alleviate the problem where it's smoking really bad. I don't know what's gonna happen. We'll give it a shot. If that doesn't resolve it, we're gonna have to probably cut it short because the rear main seal is leaking that bad. I could get all over the clutch, trash the clutch. So give this a shot and hopefully it works, but we'll see. That was the most fucking ridiculous thing ever. Fucking spool's slower. Makes no sense. That's weird. It's got a fuel pressure problem for sure. Yeah, it's still leaking. Ay. Ay, ay, ay. So we're gonna have to cut this tuning session short, unfortunately. We're dealing with two separate issues. One, the catch can that had both lines running in it, which I thought were from both banks of the engine. One bank is actually a breather. The other bank is actually going to an exhaust scavenging into the actual exhaust. Typically that wouldn't be an issue, but on this car it has a rear-mounted turbo. The line was actually put on the feed, so the exhaust pipe that's going into the inlet of the turbo, so think of it as your exhaust manifold, which is having exhaust pressure, was actually pressurizing the common can, and then it was pressurizing the engine, and as a result, because of exhaust pressure. So, you know, when we took the lines off, the turbo spooled slower, and I couldn't really correlate why it would spool slower. It actually makes sense because we had an exhaust leak, because that one line going from the can was supposed to be going to a scavenging spot on the exhaust. Normally that would work if you had a header or even a downpipe after the turbo, but because this is pre-turbo, it's actually creating an issue. So that was our first problem. There was enough crankcase pressure in the engine that it actually seems like it pushed the rear main seal out, and it lost, you know, a decent amount of oil on the floor. So you know, that alone I'm going to cut short. You know, we don't want to keep making pulls if the rear main seal is leaking oil, get all over the clutch, ruin the clutch. Second issue we ran into was actually a fuel pressure problem. When I was getting up to about 5-6 pounds of boost, despite how much fuel I was adding into my volumetric efficiency fuel map, and commanding a target lambda of about 0.78 or 11.4 air fuel, I was actually leaning out. So I was getting into the 14-15 air fuel range. When I spoke with the owner about, you know, the problem, he said that the original set of 60-pound injectors were in here actually got gummed up and went bad from sitting around so long. The car had sat for a couple years. It seems like the fuel pump itself probably took a crap as well, along with the injectors. So they're going to have to do a new fuel pump, and they're going to have to bring it back and finish the boost portion of the tuning, and also redo the catch can design and probably have it vent to atmosphere style catch can, and you know, do it the common way that everyone typically, you know, you see from the valve cover. But you know, when I stopped tuning, it was making in the mid 400 torque and wheel, around 6 to 8 pounds of boost, give or take. So you know, it is going to make power. It is a stock LS1 engine with a cam, but you know, power will be there. Unfortunately, ran into some issues. You know, this is what happens when you tune. You know, never know what you're going to have, never know what kind of problems you're going to get, and this is the reality of tuning cars day in, day out. You know, they don't all go smoothly, unfortunately. So thanks for joining in this episode. See you in the next, and like, subscribe, and check you guys out later.